So I have to admit, I've not always been a fan of social media. Um, I
Mhm.
have found it overwhelming. I found
Mhm.
it confusing. I found it frustrating. When I get on Facebook sometimes and somebody has just, done something mundane in their life and they want to tell me about it, I just, I want to blow my own brain. So when I met Chloe DeVita, and she gave me the distinction that we're going to talk about today between being active and present on social media, it
Mhm.
totally changed my perspective. I now see social media in a different light because it doesn't feel overwhelming. I don't have to be doing everything everywhere. I just have to be doing the right things in the right places.
Mhm.
So that's why I wanted to bring Chloe to all of you today, because she just so gets it. So Chloe and I
Yeah.
met in the speaking community.
Yes.
And before that, she ran the Blog Pause Pet Influencer Network, and she did
Mhm.
that from inception. And she
Mhm.
produced all of their annual social media and blogging conference that they did. And she worked with a bunch of brands, names you would have never heard of, like Bear, nobody, Sony, another nobody company, Tractor Supply, Stalkers, who are they?
Yeah.
Clearly some big brands. And she's
Yeah.
leveraged all that. Now she has her own consulting business, and she's
Mhm.
strategizing on digital marketing, coaching for entrepreneurs and small businesses. And she's also become this amazing performance coach for speakers. And she's a heck of a speaker herself. I know she'll be
Thank you.
speaking at Inbound this year. I've got
Mhm.
to see Chloe in action. So Chloe, it's so good to have you. We've been wanting to do this for a little while. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining this audience. And how about we dive right in
Yeah.
and talk about that distinction? Is that okay?
Let's go. Thanks, Scott.
So what's the difference? What's the difference between being active versus present on all these different social media channels?
So I think the confusion comes in that when people talk about social media, they only talk about the active part. They only talk about what you need to do and how you engage and all these things that come up. And that is important when you pick the places that you feel, one, your audience exists on and engages on, and
Mm,
two, you understand well enough to use properly. So if you've got those two pieces, activity is important. The presence piece, that just means people can find you.
mm,
So for instance, me personally, I'm not active yet on Instagram. I want to be, but I have a presence there. If you go there, you'll find my name, you'll find a link to my site, you'll find some information about me. So that if somebody goes looking on Instagram, I have a presence and people can find me.
mm.
But I'm not active there. I'm not investing time in it yet. That's coming. So when you look at them both, activity means you're showing up on a regular basis, you're engaging. If your community reaches out to you there, you're responding fairly timely, you're doing things in a consistent manner. So activity resides within your commitment based on time.
So none of you probably saw this, but once again, Chloe did what she always does, which is why I love her as a subject matter expert, as my head just went, because you just admitted on video
Mm-hmm.
that you're not active on a
Yeah.
big social media channel. You're present. And
Mm-hmm.
presence for you right now is enough. Yet, I hear that you're not there yet, which means you
Mm-hmm.
have other priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a priority right now. And that's okay. And you're
Yep.
willing to admit that publicly. And I hope that's the first takeaway is we can't all be everywhere doing everything all the time. We have to pick and choose. And
Mm-hmm.
you've strategically chosen these other channels. So
Mm-hmm.
let's help everybody watching this choose. So
Yeah.
when it comes to recruiting top talent,
Yes.
how does somebody watching this figure out where they need to be active versus present on social media, Chloe?
Mm-hmm. First, you know who you're going after. If you're trying to recruit top talent, you've got a list of what you're looking for. Approximately where they're located could be one, where what their history is like, what their specialties are. You've got a list. That list is going to be most effective actually in places like Facebook and Instagram because of the data for which those platforms have. So
Mm,
the availability to you is a lot more there than other platforms. Facebook is a really great place if you use it correctly and you understand that organic is very difficult these days, not impossible, but it's very difficult. And if you're not going to have a full plan dedicated to organic reach, you're going to be paying, but it will be worth it if you can really target the people you're trying to reach. So for recruiters, Facebook can be a great place, because think about people who are looking for jobs. One, they have a little bit more time on their hands where they may be on Facebook more often and just perusing and engaging with people, and hopefully, if they're smart, networking. Right? They're out there. If they're looking for a position, they are in the places where they can network to talk to people, so people know that they're looking for a position, which means they're already regularly spending time in a place like Facebook. Now, I'm not saying every single person is on Facebook, but a majority are. And when you can tailor who sees your content so well when you do Facebook ads, and you don't have to spend a ton of money. I have literally done Facebook ads for $5 just to see if it hit or not. And then if it did, I can put in more. And if it didn't, I move on to the next one. But it's definitely a place where you can get really specific and you can find people in ways that you can't find them in other places. So for instance, if I'm IBM, I could actually tailor a recruiting ad for people who are interested in, whatever department, IT, different things like that, so that I'm getting in front of people who actually care. And you can even know, Facebook has ways to know if they've been job searching. If they're already doing that in Facebook, you can target that down. It's a good place to be active.
I love what you're saying, because I know it's true, because, for example, so IBM Watson, one of the people I mentioned in my book and interviewed for my book was Obed, who is their VP of People.
Okay.
And I know that he and his team are doing this. They are active in a number of different places because they have a pretty good sized team.
Yeah.
But there are other places they are present. And one of the places they're quite active and they're running ads, I see them for IBM Watson, is on Facebook. And you said something really important, is sometimes there's some figuring out that has to be done around this. One of the companies I work with hires nurse anesthetists. And they experimented between LinkedIn, being active to recruit nurse anesthetists, and Facebook. And you might think, well, LinkedIn Business, the nurse anesthetist would be more active on there. Oh no, not even close. When they ran the side-by-side experiments, they got more bang for their buck and time through Facebook, through boosting ads. And you were right, the $5, I think they spent maybe 20, $25 in the test. Yeah. The flow was so much more substantial that they maintained being present on LinkedIn for the recruitment of nurse anesthetists, but incredibly active and engaging. And Facebook is where they're posting a lot of the content to enrich the psyches and knowledge of these people, while also boosting their posts and putting the jobs out there. And they've created this entire community. Now it's gotten so successful, they've created a closed subgroup that nurse anesthetists have to request to be a part of, that only they can see. That's how well this worked because of how they distinguish between active and present. So I've seen what you're talking about. So let's close with this. You've already given us some good examples, but give us one more example of how people could be active on social media in a meaningful way versus present in a meaningful way.
One of the things I think is really important is knowing when to be active, meaning, and this is really common for, let's say there's a company and they're going to a big recruiting event. During that event, you may not normally be active on a place like Twitter or Instagram, but in those few days, you should be, because then it's not just about investing the time for longevity there. It's not about, where is this going in the long term? It's actually about being a part of the conversation and having a share of voice during an important time that your community is engaging. So it's really important, I believe, to think about activity in two ways. And one is, where's my consistent activity? Where, like your great example, that was a great example of, they did an A/B test, they figured out where the activity really happened, and then they invested in that place without ignoring the other one. And so that's a longevity play. Now, if they were to go and take that same group to some, you know, big event where that community was there and they were trying to grow, they may want to boost up a bit on places like Instagram and Twitter. And I use those two specifically because they're open forum, meaning if I put out a tweet, everybody sees it. If you put out a Facebook post, only the people that follow you or the people you target if you're paying for it see it. Twitter's open to everybody, and at an event, it's followed by a hashtag. The same thing with Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So understanding how to leverage the places that you're present in the moments that you need the activity without feeling like this has to continue, because it's really about that moment and having a share of voice so that the people watching on those hashtags or that event can see that you're there and that you have meaningful things to share.
So you just, once again, my head one more time. It's, you know, I can see things so black and white sometimes. I think it's a guy thing. And, you know, active versus present, I had been thinking about it in kind of a static mindset, that I'm going to be active all the time here and present all the time here. But you know what the reality is, I don't do that. I know better. I know exactly what you're talking about. In preparation for a keynote, you and I were just talking about that I'm doing tomorrow. I've been active in places I'm not normally.
Yes.
And so there's this dynamic nature. So active and present isn't static, it's also dynamic. And it depends on what's going on around you.
Correct.
So I love the simplicity. I bet everybody else watching this is as well. So now they want to know how to be in touch with Chloe. And Chloe, I want you to tell them two things. Tell people how to, you know, check you out on the web and your website, but tell everybody as well. I know you're doing this live show on Facebook. I think it's on Fridays. Tell people about that as well, if you would.
Sure. So I can be reached at, my company's name is Perceptive Presence. Presence like being present, not like giving a gift. perceptivepresence.com. You can check me out there. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and you can also follow me as Chloe DeVita. I kind of do both. My show is on my Facebook page. So if you go to Perceptive Presence at 2 p.m. Eastern, any Friday, I sometimes interview people. I sometimes speak independently, and it's always around things I see happening online. So it's called This Week in Digital, because, and to me, digital is apps, digital is websites, digital is Facebook, social media, digital is everywhere. And so I call it that because I mean, I've talked to people who focus on chatbots. I've talked to people who focus on culture. I've talked to people who focus on customer experience. All of it is applicable when you're working in a digital world, which is what we're in. And so you can tune in and learn, hear, listen from all my guests and me every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, everybody. Active versus present. You know, I never thought I would see social media that simply, but I think it is. And when you're active and present in a dynamic versus a static way, you know, you're going to be powerfully out there. And I've often said, many of you who've heard me talk about staying in contention, the way you do that is you're in sight and you're in mind. Because if you're not, you're out of sight, out of mind, and out of contention. And you can't afford to do that with top talent. Top talented people have more choices than ever. And Chloe distilled for us today what I think is an amazingly simple approach. And I hope you also take away as well is you got to start where you are. Here we have this subject matter expert in Chloe, and she's being active in lots of places, but she's choosing not to be active right now on Instagram. And that's okay. So if it's okay for a social media expert to pick and choose and scale over time, it is for you as well. So Chloe, brilliant. I'm so glad we had this conversation. All the best. Thank you for sharing this with us today. And I hope we get to do this another time.
Thanks, Scott. Enjoyed it.
All right. Have a good day. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.